Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome out to the Saturday morning workshop. I'm Ferre. I'm here with Stephen Swenson. We appreciate you coming out and joining us this morning for this workshop.
Yeah, every couple months or so, we like to do an online workshop, make it available to everyone, and just explain to people tax liens and deeds, what's available with this investment strategy.
Yeah, I think that chances are you've come to us probably through online videos. We have a lot of free videos that are out there on the internet, and you might notice we're a little bit different from other companies if you're new to us. You're welcome to ask questions at any point here during the event. We always record all of these. But yeah, I think Steve and I are a little bit different from some of the other training companies that are out there. Just a little bit of history on us and who we are. We're cousins. We grew up with each other, and we basically got involved or started dealing with tax liens. I guess it was you first that originally was introduced to tax liens, then you introduced me to it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was a real estate agent. My broker invited me to attend the local tax sale. So it was just a tax deed auction. And, you know, soon after that, I started talking with Shade about it. And, you know, within really a pretty short period of time, within early 2000, we were researching and starting on the process of investing into tax liens, tax deeds, and really understanding this whole process, which has taken, you know, we're still learning. That's one of the crazy things about this investment strategy, is because there's so many different states. It's something we're still in the process of learning as we go through and try new areas and new strategies and put together new ways to invest. It's really just one of the most incredible strategies available.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. We basically had to go through and learn the same way that you are learning right now, only when we started trying to learn about it, there was less information that was available, and we actually sought out all of the information we could find at the time. But that was when we realized that all of the so-called training that was out there at the time was really insufficient. It didn't really identify the investment very well, and I think that the investment before then was limited somewhat, but the internet changed all of that. The internet changed everything about how tax liens and deeds work, and that's something else that we've been able to experience from about the time that we started until now. You know, the internet's changed everything about it, made it so much easier to engage in. But for us, our story essentially is that we started providing training in around 2007. We were providing training to seminar companies. Basically, we would private label our stuff to them, and they would go out and do their seminars, and they would sell the packages for big bucks. And that was always a concern for us because they were overcharging people for it. You know, they were overcharging people for what they were getting. And, you know, I think they were selling people on big dreams, but most of the seminar companies didn't really care that much about the fulfillment. They didn't really care that much about the training side of it. They mostly cared about selling the people stuff. And so we eventually stopped working with the seminar companies altogether because of that, because we knew that we could cut out the middleman and we could bring training directly to the public at a fraction of the cost, which is essentially what we did.
Yeah, exactly. You know, during that time, between 1999 and 2007, we worked as coaches within different departments, within seminar divisions, within their training departments, really creating programs. And so, you know, we had the chance to work with programs that were struggling, tax sale programs, training programs, and figure out really what was all of the problems. And so in 2007, when we created our own program, that's where we created the investor profile system. That's where we created all of these different systems, even naming the redemption deeds and putting them in a specific category, which some of these things are now essentially taught by lots of different companies. And these were different things that me and Shade created really because we got to work with so many students between 1999 and 2007 before we started our own program. We had already worked with thousands of different investors throughout that time. And so when we created our program, essentially we worked with many of the biggest seminar companies. And so we worked not only through online, but also we had a program that was featured in a TV infomercial.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about all of that, I think, has been the experience. When we started with it, there really weren't very good definitions on things. Nobody really explained the systems as a whole, and that was part of what we had to tackle, was looking at the United States as a whole. And we had to kind of figure out how it worked all together. And so that was one of the things that was different about how we got started. Now, I think everybody that's here is here for the same reasons. Essentially, everybody here wants to make money, and I'm sure that everybody here has looked into a lot of other investments, and you found that either the other investments are either not safe enough, they don't offer enough security, or other investments aren't profitable enough. But it's generally going to be one of those factors. I'm sure that everybody here has probably looked at a lot of different investments. Oh, by the way, it is great to see everybody out here this morning. So why don't we just talk for a second about what exactly the definition is of terms. For instance, when we're talking about what a good rate of return is, what exactly do we mean? When you think about what a good rate of return is, what exactly comes to mind? Because I think different people have different definitions for things. I think if you were to ask most people today what a good return is on their money, you might get a lot of different answers depending on what their experience had been. Personally, I think with most of your traditional investments, I think it's difficult to even earn 3 to 5% on your money.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's a challenge. I think getting much above there, there's not too many investments out there that you can find, or at least that I've been able to find, that you're going to earn 9 to 10% with, or 10% or more. It's almost unheard of.
And if there is, they're very high risk.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's what normally happens, is as profitability increases, so does the overall risk associated with the investment. That's a problem. That's a problem if you're in a position where you can't lose your money. That's the problem when we're looking at some of these ways you might earn a high rate of return, like the stock market, securities, CDs. I guess none of these things really offer a high rate of return. The stock market, you might be able to get a fairly decent rate of return if you happen to get it right, or you could lose everything.
Yeah. And that's hoping that the stock market continues to go up. There's no guarantee in that. There's no guarantee with the stock market, and that's where that risk comes in. I have many family members that, after 9/11 happened, really lost half of their money within the stock market, or half the money that they had within the stock market, and they were in some of the most conservative type of stocks. And so, with the stock market, you can gain money, but you can also lose money, and that's really kind of what sets tax liens and this investment strategy versus some of these other strategies you have listed.
Do you know what else I just thought about that I look at as a total scam now is the way that retirement accounts are set up and what they allow you to invest in. Most retirement accounts are heavily invested in the securities market because that's what's considered to be traditional investments. But the reality of the securities market is it doesn't pay out much of a return, and it mostly makes tons of money for the companies that are managing the funds. So it's a way for them to make money on fees and things like that, but it's not really a way for you to make money. And that kind of leads me into real estate, which I'm sure everybody here believes in real estate already. It's hard not to believe in real estate. It's the ultimate investment. It's the only real-time proven investment, I think. And so if we're looking at different ways to purchase property, I'm sure everybody here has probably looked into different ways to purchase property at a discount. What is the cheapest way that you can buy property? I think if we were looking outside of tax sales, there are a limited number of answers there. Bank foreclosures or something I guess you could look at, or some kind of a pre-foreclosure, which could also be included with a desperate property owner. Rehabs, might be that a time machine would be the ultimate way, because you really just need to be able to go back in time and buy it when the property was less valuable. But that's the advantage of real estate. Why is it, though, that good deals are so hard to find? That also comes down to why real estate is such a good investment. It's a time-tested investment that has shown itself over years to be the best investment that each one of us can make. But the reason why we can't find good deals on it is because every property out there that's being sold has a property owner that has personal interest in the property. And for them to offer it at a discounted price means they're taking money out of their pocket. Okay? That's ultimately the problem. And the other thing is, the buyers don't have to discount the price of most real estate in order to sell it. That's why you don't see a lot of discounts on real estate. It's because it's a good enough investment that people don't have to discount it, and if they do discount it very much, it sells very quickly. They don't have to offer deep discounts, because even a slight discount is going to be better than most people can find just about anywhere else.
Yeah, and just looking over some of those ways, you know, as far as bank foreclosures or pre-foreclosures, you know, to me, I just see all of the problems with that particular investment strategy, you know, over tax deed investing, if that's what you're looking for as far as real estate, or if you're looking for an interest, you know, the tax liens over the stock market. You know, because with bank foreclosures, it's something that we pointed out to our students, members, this last week during the members training, as far as how much bank foreclosures go for, or they're, you know, required to pay versus what a tax deed would go for. And you can totally see that difference. And then with the pre-foreclosure, you've got to find somebody that is actually has equity within their property, which becomes more rare and rare. And finding those desperate property owners become more and more rare. And that's the reason, you know, this particular investment strategy, in my opinion, you know, we've been involved with real estate in some way or others really since we were just teenagers. You know, just really getting out of high school is when we first got started with this type of, started researching and studying this kind of stuff. And so between that entire time of working with thousands of students, you know, we've never seen a better investment strategy than this particular one.
No, it is a fact. You know, there is just no other cheaper way. I mean, even with bank foreclosures, the bank still owns the property. They still want to limit how much money they lose on that, so they're only going to discount the property by so much. So maybe with a bank foreclosure, maybe you can get the bank to discount it by 10%, or maybe by 20% if it needs some work, or something like that. But you're always going to be limited as to what kind of a deal you can get, because you've got that other property owner that doesn't want to lose money on the property. Well, that's really where tax deeds come into play. When it comes to earning high rate of return, that's where tax liens really shine. And we're going to show you how both of them work and why they are easily, I think, the best investment available to average people, and they're only getting better. So,
you know, when it comes to mortgage foreclosures, most of them are going to be over water. You know, I mean, it's
underwater.
Yeah, underwater, essentially. You know, that's the reason they're going to the mortgage foreclosure.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, most of the time when you look at bank foreclosure, the person owns way more than what the property is actually worth, and that's one of the problems with these bank foreclosures, and one of the reasons why they're foreclosed on. But let's talk about the tax sale systems here, property tax enforcement. To understand that first, the first thing we need to look at and understand is that every state has its own set of state laws that govern things like taxation. Okay, taxation of income, taxation of property. So we've got different sets of state laws, essentially. We've got different laws. We've got federal laws and we've got state laws, okay? So we know about some of the federal laws. That's part of what gives the federal government the power to tax us for things like our income tax. But in addition to the federal laws, we've got individual state laws. And state laws can be different from state to state. That's why in some states it's legal to gamble, while in other states it's not. Every state has their own set of state laws that are unique to that state. Now, included in those state laws are also laws that govern and control how property taxes are collected and how property taxes are enforced. Okay, so when we're talking about property tax enforcement here, that's something that will come down to state law levels. That means, you know, that any place you're working at will basically depend on its state laws for how it operates. Now,
yeah, the county law will follow the state law.
yeah, essentially, yeah. All the counties within your local governments, they rely on state law to dictate what they do, essentially, and they rely on the state law to get the power they need in order to tax us. Taxing people is a big deal. So basically, what we determined after we looked throughout the United States, we were able to determine this: there are 3 property tax enforcement systems that are used in the United States. Okay, meaning that every state in the country uses, most of them use just one system. Some of them use multiple systems here, but it basically comes down to tax lien system, a tax deed system, and a redemption deed system. Okay, so if you can understand these 3 systems, you can pretty well understand how property tax enforcement works anywhere in the U.S. So if we're talking first about how this works, and we're talking about property tax enforcement, most of you, if you've ever owned property before, you're familiar with property taxes. You pay your property taxes to the county, and the county essentially, or if it could be a municipal government or whoever the government is you pay property taxes to, they use those funds to pay for things like the public education system, like some of the locally provided services like police and fire departments. There are a lot of things that your money goes towards when you pay it to the local government.
Yeah, this is the reason property taxes are so important for the local government, because this is really the local government's only, especially on a county level, if we're looking at county government, this is their only way to make money.
Yeah, it's their only source of revenue.
They're a lot of times some of the city type taxes are going to go within the city, and so the property tax is really the way to fund the school, the fire, the police, all of these different things within the individual county or municipality. And that's the reason it's so important that the county essentially gets their money. That's the reason they put this whole tax sale system in place, is because those services are so essential within the community.
Yeah. Now, the trick to getting people to pay something is to threaten them with some kind of ramification if they don't pay, and that's essentially what the property tax system does if people don't pay. If you think about it, if you had 20% of property owners that didn't pay their property taxes, that would create a huge problem for the county government, because they have ongoing billing that's going on. They rely on that money. In fact, the amount that they charge every property owner is based on what their budget is. Ad valorem taxes is you'll see that term a lot with when you're looking at property taxes. And ad valorem basically means according to value. Every property is taxed based on its value and based on what the needs are for the county. That's what determines your property tax rate, which might be 0.5%, 1%, whatever that property tax rate is. Basically the amount that the county has calculated it needs in order to collect enough money to pay their bills.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to have some type of an enforcement system in place when people don't pay their property taxes. And essentially, what we're going to talk about here, we're going to talk about the first system, which are tax liens, and how tax liens work. Because essentially what happens is when a person is delinquent with their property taxes, the county can place a lien against the property. Now, what exactly is a tax lien? Well, a tax lien is a legal claim that's placed against real property by a government taxing authority due to delinquent property taxes. Okay, so in other words, it's when the government places this legal claim against the property. Now, the lien uses the entire property as collateral for the debt that's owed. Okay, so if you have a $100,000 home and there's a $1,000 tax bill, that lien still goes against the entire $100,000 home, even though it's just a $1,000 lien.
Yeah, that's what makes tax lien investing so safe and so profitable and so guaranteed, is because it's backed by state law that has been into place usually for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's also, the property itself acts as collateral for the tax lien certificate. Now, that lien also is a first position lien, which means it's going to take priority over mortgages, over any other types of liens the tax lien has to be paid off before anything else on the property is done. If the property owner wants to sell the property, they have to pay off the tax lien. If they want to do anything, even refinance, they're going to have to pay off the tax lien before they do anything with the property. And so that's really where that security comes into place, is that they're going to have to pay you off before they do anything. And you know, in addition to that, you know, that lien has a redemption period as well.
Yeah, in fact, I think everybody knows that if you don't pay your property taxes for long enough, eventually you can lose your property. Well, that's due to liens and how they work. And really a lot of that is about the preventing the transfer of ownership. It's about the transfer of ownership, not allowing the property owner to be able to sell the property. But essentially what happens, though, and keep this in mind, the county only has one objective here. They only want to collect the money that's owed to them. That's all they ever care about, is just collecting the money that's owed to them. And placing a lien against the property is simply the fastest way for them to collect the money. And the reason they do that is because when they place the lien against the property, it gives them something that they can sell, okay? And the way they do that is by selling these liens at a public auction or at a sale, all right? So the day of the sale comes up, they sell these liens, and the liens represent the amount that's owed, okay? So if there's $1,000 owed on this property in delinquent taxes, then the lien amount is created for $1,000, and they sell those off to investors because the way the state law is written, those liens are guaranteed to pay out a set interest rate return to investors. And that interest rate return can range from 10% to as high as 18% annually on the property. So it represents a really good overall rate of return on an incredibly secure investment.
Yeah, exactly. And so essentially, once you buy that tax lien certificate, on the day of the sale, really two things are going to happen. Number one, the lien's going to start accruing interest. So you're going to start earning that interest rate like Shade talked about. And also that redemption period is going to start.
Yeah, and these are important because, well, first off, the end result here, what everything really depends on is the property owner and what they do, and whether the property owner pays off what they owe or if they don't pay off what they owe. But there really are only two potential scenarios here with tax liens. So the first scenario is the most common one, and this is what happens the vast majority of the time. Tax liens are made to redeem, okay? So 95% plus of the time, this is exactly what happens. You know, nobody loses their property because of delinquent taxes. They just pay their bill a little bit late. So what happens when the delinquent property owner pays off the county what they owe in delinquent penalties and fees? Well, the county redeems the lien. And basically what they do when they redeem the lien is they cut a check to the investor for their initial investment plus the interest rate that they earned up to that point. So if it was 6 months and they were earning 18% annually, then they would have earned 9% interest on their money. So they would get that initial investment plus 9% interest on that 6-month time period.
Yeah, and this is what's going to happen 95% of the time. You know, 95% of the time, you're just going to get your money back, you're going to get your interest. That's generally what's going to happen, you know, majority of the time that you purchase tax lien certificates.
Yeah, in fact, this should be what your objective is if you're buying tax liens. When you're buying tax liens, your objective should be to earn high interest rate returns on a really safe investment. And the reason why it's so safe is because of what happens here in that second scenario. So let's say that the property owner doesn't pay what's owed, and that redemption period comes to an end. Okay, so let's say it's a 2-year redemption period. You wait for 2 years and nothing happens, okay? Well, after that redemption period expires, the lien can be used to foreclose on the property, okay? So basically you can use that lien to become the new property owner, okay? Essentially it's going to be one way or the other. Either the property owner is going to pay off what's owed and retain the property, in which case the lien redeems, you get your check in the mail, or the property owner doesn't pay that off and you foreclose on the property and become the new property owner. So with tax liens, keep in mind, this is really all about earning a high interest rate return on a really safe investment. Your investment, your $1,000 that you pay for this tax lien is secured by a property that's worth $40,000 or $50,000 or whatever the amount is, it's well secured. And chances are it's going to redeem anyway. But if it didn't redeem, it would be well worth foreclosing on.
Yeah, I mean, this is what makes tax liens such a great investment. You know, it's really a no-brainer. Either you're going to get paid back your money in your return, or you get a chance to pick up a property that you're purchasing for usually, while it's all said and done, under 5% of the property's value if you're looking at a normal tax lien certificate. So.
Yeah, and by the way, when it comes to tax liens, we don't have to conduct a ton of due diligence and research on the liens in order to buy them. Steve and I will buy tax liens off of a glance. Okay, we can just look at a property for a second and tell you if we buy a lien against it, because they are made to redeem. And if you're planning on that, then they work out pretty well in terms of earning high interest rate returns. But let's say you want property. Let's say that property acquisition is what you're all about. You want to buy property for a really cheap price. Well, we would tell you to look at tax deeds then, rather than to try to buy tax liens and hope that they don't redeem and you can foreclose on them. It makes a lot more sense if you want property to go directly to tax deeds to begin with. So what exactly are they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we're talking about tax deeds, really what we're talking about is a tax deed foreclosure. You know, it's the foreclosure of the property. So like a mortgage foreclosure, they're foreclosing because the mortgage hasn't been paid. With the tax foreclosure, essentially they're foreclosing because the property taxes haven't been paid. Now, what tax deed states do is they give the power to foreclose on the property after the redemption period has expired. And so instead of selling tax lien certificates, what tax deed states do is they just wait until the redemption period is expired. Then they foreclose on the property themselves and offer it up at the sale.
Yeah, so essentially, in tax deed states, they might wait a little bit longer before they're able to collect their money. They might even issue liens against the property to prevent the property owner from being able to sell or transfer ownership in any way. But essentially, they're going to wait out the entire redemption period, and once that comes to an end, the county forecloses on the property. Now, the reason why that is so important for us as investors is because of this. The county's only interested, again, in collecting the money that's owed to them, okay? So the county will foreclose on this property, but the property taxes that are owed at the time of foreclosing are not going to be anything close to what the property's worth, okay? Let's say there's a 2 or 3 year redemption period. Well, if you consider 2 or 3 years worth of delinquent taxes and fees, it's not going to add up to the full value of the property. However, what's important for us to know is that the county only cares about collecting the money that's owed to them, and the best way for them to do this is by holding a tax sale and selling these properties off to the public. But the trick is they're going to open the bidding up at what's owed in delinquent taxes and fees. Okay, so if that's 10% of what the property is worth, then that's what they'll open the bidding at. And guess what? Unlike most real estate transactions where you have a property owner that has personal interest in the property, in other words, they don't want to lose their money on the property, so they're going to try to sell it for top dollar. Well, the county doesn't have personal interest in the property. This is the only real estate transaction that I know of where the party selling the property has no personal interest in what it sells for. As long as they collect that minimum amount, they're good to go. So the county will sell the property for that minimum bid amount if there's no other bidders. Basically, as an investor, you can go there and buy these properties. You can bid on them at the auction, starting off at what's owed, which is going to be a fraction of what they're worth.
Yeah, exactly. And what's going to happen after that auction is you're going to receive a tax deed or a quitclaim deed. Now, what makes tax sale investing so unique is that foreclosure process is what we call a judicial foreclosure, and going through that foreclosure, that's going to eliminate, in 99% of the cases, it's going to eliminate any mortgages or liens against the property or judgments against the property. The only other thing that could survive foreclosure in a tax deed foreclosure is going to be some other type of governmental lien. And so what that does is that gives us the ability to really pick up these properties free and clear of other encumbrances, other problems against the property. We're going to be able to see a quitclaim deed on the property. We can go ahead and wholesale it. We can take it through quiet title if we want to sell it for top dollar. But really, this is the opportunity, through tax deeds is where you can acquire property for 10, 20, 30 cents, 40 cents on the dollar that you're able to turn around and make a huge profit on.
Yeah. So really what we have with tax liens and tax deeds, I think, is really one of the best kept secrets in investing. And it's not that they've been a secret, it's that they were difficult to understand for a long time, confusing for a long time, and they were a difficult investment for people to engage in because they used to require a lot of travel. But that's not the case anymore. Now, more and more counties are making it easier and easier for people to invest, and what's happening here is that we've got this investment that's become much easier than it was just 10 years ago to do, and that's including both tax liens and tax deeds, whichever one it is you want to buy. Now there's so many online options now, and you can do all your research online now, which you used to have to travel before to do that. When we started, we had to go to county records buildings to get county records, but now we can access most county records online. And so it's made a tremendous difference in how accessible the investments are. And in terms of the types of deals that are out there, let's just look at some of the examples here, because we see amazing property all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes tax deed investing such an awesome strategy, is that you can purchase, you can find properties for as little as a couple $100. You can find properties, let's say, I guess what I'm saying is you can find a property depending on whatever type of investment you have to work with. So if you have 50 grand to work with, well, then maybe you can compete in some of those higher dollar homes that are worth several $100,000 where you're going to have huge amounts of profit. If you only have $500 to work with, well, you can still go out there and find great properties with great value. I mean, me and Shade just recently picked up several different good building lots in nice, improved building lots within subdivisions that are valued 25 to 30 grand that we picked up for $500 each. So there's these type of deals out there if you're willing to go out there and find them.
Yeah, in fact, it's the cheapest way to find property. I'm not sure if the sound is working well for everybody, or if it's come in and out here for anybody. We've had one person mention that the sound is coming in and out, but it looks like it's been consistent here on our end. So let us know if there are any kind of audio problems here with it, because we haven't heard anything about it yet until just now. Here's some examples of some tax liens, and these tax liens are to show you what kind of security you'll find in tax liens. Again, most tax liens are redeemed, but if you look at these, you've got smaller liens, okay? And buying liens, I think, is always a good idea. I think everybody should buy liens so that you can see the process work, but you can see on some of these properties, we have properties that are valued anywhere from $55,000 to $89,000 in liens that cost anywhere from $300 up to about $1,400. There's an incredible level of security there if you think about it. Your $1,400 investment is against a property that's worth $89,000. Okay, so there's a good chance that that property is going to redeem, and when it does, you make 14% on your money. That's an excellent rate of return on a really safe investment.
Also one thing to add: these different tax lien certificates, these are tax liens that are available over the counter right now. So these are some tax liens that we found that are completely over the counter in one of our lists that are available on our website. So you can see that these different types of properties are available to be picked up where you're earning 14%, where you're earning 16%, where you're earning 18%, depending on the state.
Yeah. Now, by the way, if anybody if we're having a lot of sound problems, let us know. I'm just trying to figure out if it's just one individual case or if everybody is having a difficult time hearing us. Sometimes if it's just one case with an individual, it can just be individual connections. But if we have a bad connection overall, we want to make sure that we know about that so that we can fix it. Yeah, I think it's working for most people. And so it might just be an individual case if we've got one or two people that are having their audio kick in and out, you might try getting off the webinar and getting back on. Okay, so really what that also kind of brought to mind here is when we think about foreclosures, and the reality of it is most people think about bank foreclosures when the word foreclosure comes to mind, okay? But bank foreclosures have problems compared to tax deed foreclosures. One of the problems with a bank foreclosure is that it's not a true foreclosure, okay? When you buy a property that you get a loan on, okay, when you go to sign that mortgage contract, one of the things you're going to sign is called the power of sale stipulation. And what that does is it's you giving away your right to a true foreclosure, a judicial foreclosure done through the courts, okay? And what it does is it gives the lender the power to foreclose on you in a non-judicial way, okay? So in other words, what it does is they don't have to go by state law anymore. They don't have to follow foreclosure law anymore because you've signed that power of sale stipulation in the sales contract. And what that does is it means that they can take the property away relatively quickly if you stop paying, okay? And they can turn around and resell that property if they want. But is that a foreclosure? Not really, because the property never actually left the hands of the lender, who was really the property owner the entire time. It never actually transferred there. They just took it from one person. They decided to sell it to somebody else. But what that means, though, is that any of the encumbrances that were attached to the property are still attached to the property because it wasn't actually foreclosed on. It was basically just transferring ownership.
Yeah, in fact, that's all they're really doing at these mortgage foreclosures is essentially, you know, transferring their ownership over to the investor or to whoever's buying the property. And so, just like Shade said, if there's, you know, if there's any other type of, if there's a second mortgage on the property, if there's some type of judgments or liens against the property, those things are still going to be attached to the property because all the mortgage company has done is they've sold their right to that property. They've sold their ownership. So any of the other problems can still arise. That's the big difference between a mortgage foreclosure and what we call a tax foreclosure.
Yeah, with a tax foreclosure, it's a judicial foreclosure that's done through the courts. And as we mentioned before, it's a first position lien initially, this placed against the property that takes priority or precedence over things like mortgages. Well, with a tax foreclosure, when it forecloses, it wipes out or extinguishes anything attached to the property. Okay, so in other words, it's like getting a clean slate of health after that. You know, when the property has been through a judicial foreclosure, nobody really has any claims or rights to the property anymore because it's just been foreclosed on by the state and according to state laws. So when you go to buy that tax deed, you have the advantage of it having just been through that foreclosure and having all of those encumbrances extinguished. You know, with any other type of investment method with real estate, you're going to have to worry about what else exists there against the property, but not so much with tax deeds.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a better way to purchase real estate. If you're looking to purchase real estate for the lowest possible price with the hugest profitability margins, you're not going to be able to find a better investment than through tax deed foreclosures. You know, in addition to that, there's so many different opportunities. You can purchase them online. You can purchase them over the counter. If you have local auctions, you can attend the local auction, where usually at the local auctions, the only people that are going to be there is the local competition, which means that a lot of times you can get incredible great sales by attending live auctions in person. In addition with that, there's, you know, of course, over the counter. So there's so many of these different areas in different ways that you can start purchasing these type of properties. You know, me and Shade are constantly going through and you know, researching auctions, registering for these auctions, participating in them, along with our members and students as we're participating in these different tax sales that are taking place.
Yeah, and you know, just one more thing that we want to just briefly mention here before we go and look at some examples is that we're also witnessing something else that's been pretty amazing. It's really only happened over the last 5 years, I would say. And to us, we liken it to the next great land giveaway here. I don't know if you remember or if you've heard of the story, but the Oklahoma Land Rush of 1889, that's where they basically let people line up, and at high noon they took off 50,000 people to go and to claim their stake of land. What we have happening right now is the closest thing we've ever seen to a land giveaway. And what it is this. There are some counties across the country that have thousands and thousands of tax liens or tax deeds still on their books, okay? And normally what happens when they have property on their books, what it means is that they offered the property at a sale, but counties are not very good at getting people out to their sale, okay? They've never been good at, as a sales organization, you know, they just kind of do bare minimum of what they have to do in order to hold these sales. Well, what's happened over time is that those properties begin to accrue more and more delinquent debt that's owed, okay? So if you can imagine, if you had a property that's been sitting on the books for 10 years or 15 years without anybody paying the property taxes, the amount that's owed can get to be enormous. That's where you can look and see some tax liens that you might find a tax lien for $2,000 on a property that's worth $1,000, okay? That happens sometimes where you get these properties that are totally upside down with the amount that's owed versus what they're worth. But what's happened here over the last 5 years is that counties are beginning to forgive that debt. They're beginning to see the advantage of just forgetting about the amount that was owed before. So it doesn't matter what was owed. They'll decide that they'll start bidding on all of these properties here starting at $50 or starting at $100 basically. And they'll sell all the property there with an opening bid of $100 just so they can get a new property owner in it that will begin paying the property taxes. So what it means is that in a lot of these counties is it's no longer even important what was owed on the property because they just want a new property owner in it. And a lot of these properties, we picked up a lot of property for $100, $200. We love cheap property. Cheap property is one of our favorite things to find.
Yeah, well, the advantage is it just gives you the ability to turn around and sell it with at such a discounted rate still make a huge amount of profit. You know, as far as these different types of properties that are available, these can be through an online auction. They can be purchased through over-the-counter sales. In fact, sometimes what they have is what we call a resale, where all of the properties that were initially offered for sale that didn't sell over all of the years are suddenly put up to an auction with all of the bids starting at $50 or $100. In fact, we've seen these type of auctions in several states across the country, from Michigan to even California has had auctions that start with an opening bid of $100. And it's crazy that there's 1,000 or 1,500 properties available in a county within California where all properties are starting out with that low dollar of a bid. And so, there can still be competition. Maybe a property sells for, 1,000 or 1,500 or maybe even more depending on the property type. But it gives you an opportunity to purchase property at really incredibly discounted rates, the kind of discounts you're not going to find anywhere else.
Yeah. In fact, with all the other forms of real estate investing, you just won't find any other deals like this because every other form of real estate investing has that person with personal interest in the property, and they don't want to lose money. That's it's really as simple as that. And so this is the only way I know of to get property at truly at a discounted rate. I mean, when we're talking about enormous discounts here, I don't think they're available any other way. So why don't we take a minute and look at some examples here. We'd like to look over some examples. We can show you some different tax liens and tax deeds, and how we go about finding them, how they're available, and basically show you how it works. All right. So where should we start with here, Steve?
Well, let's go to our online auctions, and the reason we want to show you online auctions is just because it's something that anyone in the country could purchase depending on where they're at. And there's also a lot of opportunities available there. So if we go to our own, this is our website, Tax Help Support. So this is essentially our member training site. If we go to our online auction tab, all of the online auctions that are taking place are going to be available through these links. So we can either click on online tax liens, we can click on tax deeds, we can click on redemption deeds of real estate. But for this, we're going to click on tax and certificates first, and then we'll go research some tax deeds. Now, as far as online tax lien auctions, there's going to be auctions coming up, next year. But as far as the currently, there's going to be auctions in Colorado and also in New Jersey as well. So if we go, let's go ahead and check out Mesa County to start with. And we can see that their auction is going to take place on November 8th. Now, this is Colorado, a tax and certificate state, and so this here is going to take us directly to the online auction website. Now, there's lots of different online auction companies out there that handle these auctions for the different counties, and so this particular auction is being handled by a company called realauction.com or Real Auction. But essentially, once we get here, we can go ahead and click on the preview items to sell to essentially see the tax sale list. Now, once we get to the tax sale list, what me and Shay will usually do is we'll go ahead and research by price. It just makes it a little bit easier sometimes to kind of narrow down the different tax lien certificates. Now, we can see in this sale there's only about 1,000 tax liens available. Depending on the different state, or county, the amount of tax liens can range. So, here within Colorado, they have, more of a limited number of tax liens. A county in Florida may have, 30,000 tax liens. So it just kind of depends on the state.
It's also worth noting here, it looks like they've got liens starting at about $46 here. The first lien that I ever bought was for $67. And I bought it at an actual auction, but going through the experience of buying it, I mean, if the lien hadn't redeemed at all, it would have been worth it, just to go through the experience. But the lien did end up redeeming, even at just $67. I got a check back, in the mail for that amount plus the interest that it earned, and the value in that was enormous. It was great to see that process work years ago, because it builds your faith, your confidence in the investment, and that it works. But you can start out and do it with a really small amount in the beginning, which is a good way to start.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one thing that's nice about the online auctions is a lot of them are going to have links directly to the county records. So we can go ahead and click on any of these different tax liens on the link, and it's going to pull up the property record, and we can see what is attached to this property. Now, like Shade said earlier during the training, we can pretty quickly determine if it's a property that we're interested in purchasing or not, if we're interested in purchasing the tax lien certificate. Now, this particular one looks like it's a large piece of land, a large plot, right next to a subdivision. So, for us, this may be an actual tax lien certificate that we would be interested in, just because of the possible small development deal, or you could subdivide that lot. But we can see it has a value of $150,000.
Yeah, in fact, that's a pretty good value here. What we can see is, there's
2 acres.
Yeah, it's about 2 acres. Yeah, 2.09 acres here. The $2,750 is about what's owed on it annually in property taxes, and this investment. So basically, for the $2,700 that this tax lien cost, what is it? How secure is it? Well, you've got a $150,000 property, and that's just based on the county's value. If we were to look at the actual value, it's probably even higher than that, because it usually is with most counties.
Yeah, I'll bet these homes within the neighborhood are worth $300,000 plus. Between $300,000 to $500,000, I would imagine, at least $300,000. And so, looking at that big property, that is really a prime property for possible development.
Yeah, this would be, and it looks like there must be some homes on it, or maybe older homes still on it.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
There's no approval value anymore.
Yeah,
It's
maybe they tore them
down.
They may have tore down the older homes that were there. You can see it is a brand new subdivision. Well, let's see here.
You know.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, so sorry, we got a bunch of questions here that came in all at once here. Let me. Okay. The 14% over-the-counter example that we showed. What state was that from? Do you remember?
Yeah, that was from Nebraska.
Nebraska. That's right. And let's see here. Hopefully here it will look normal here for you. So why don't we take a look at another one just so we can give you a broad range of examples here. So we're going to look here. We can click on any of these. It's about a $2,000 tax lien. And what we can see here, this one is
some type of commercial property.
Yeah, it is. It is a commercial piece.
It looks like it, at least to me. Yeah, area offices, 12 offices.
Yeah. In fact, yeah, the total value on it, they put it about $111,000. You know, includes part of this parking lot, and
I wonder if it's just a particular condo within that unit.
Yeah, it could be
because of the value. You know, that whole building would be a lot more valuable, I would think.
Well, and that would also make sense because we can look here under the sales and conveyance information and see that the last time it sold was in 2008, and that was for $1.5 million with a warranty deed. And so it probably is. It probably is.
It's a suite or a condo, maybe.
Yeah.
0.63 acres.
Yeah, interesting. But basically, for a lien, either of these would be a great investment because your $2,000 is
essentially, you know, your investment's protected by the property. And within Colorado, one thing that's nice is that the county helps do the foreclosure, which makes it nice if you get to that point.
Now, a couple of questions here. Now, in terms of somebody's asking if we need boots on the ground. It depends on what you're investing in. There are going to be certain investments that absolutely you want somebody to lay eyes on the property, especially if you're buying tax deeds. When it comes to tax liens, not as important. And the reason why is because, again, remember that the vast majority of liens redeem. And if you pick out liens based on properties, if you pick out properties that are that have significant value, if they have significant use and value, like the properties we've looked at here so far, even the one that was just raw land, but they could be a development or something like this where we're looking at some type of commercial property. It's a secure investment based on the value that the county has given the property. It's a current value that we're looking at here, and if the current value there is like it is here, where you've got $150,000 at least that they show here, then the lien itself is going to be secure. You don't need boots on the ground for buying tax liens. If you're going to buy tax deeds, then it depends on what you're buying. In other words, a lot of times we'll buy raw land, and we'll buy raw land because we don't need to see if there are, you know, if there's a structure there on the property. In fact, raw land is the most common thing you're going to find at tax sales. It's also the most overlooked thing you're going to find over at tax sales. And you don't have to worry about the condition of improvements. You know, as long as you can get a rough idea of what the property is, you can make an investment decision on raw land without necessarily being there in person. Now, if you're going to buy property with improvements, then you need to have somebody there to do an on-site inspection for you at some point so that you can get an idea of what the current condition of the property is.
Yeah, so, you know, if we're looking at a particular auction, a tax deed auction, and let's say that there's 50 properties available in this auction, and there's maybe 5 structured properties, and, you know, there's, in addition to that, there's lots of good building lots or large tracts of land or anything like that. We'll let everyone else fight over those structured properties while we focus on the land, because we're buying the land for you know, such a discounted cost versus competing with other people trying to bid up the price of maybe a single family home or two. Because we know we can turn around and sell that, and even if we want to create some type of residual income, that's one thing that's so nice about purchasing these properties, these type of tax deed properties, is that you can essentially, you know, you could owner finance it, you could seller finance it, you could do some type of lease option. So it gives you the ability, even if you're purchasing land, to still earn residual income.
Yeah. Now, By the way, we're going to look at some more examples here, but if anybody here is interested, the site we're using here is Tax Sale Support. This is our membership site that people can sign up for. It's $30 a month subscription you can sign up for. But also, if you would like one-on-one help with Steve and I, something that we have been offering, we've got a couple of openings on right now, is our one-on-one coaching. And so if anybody is interested in the one-on-one coaching package, let us know on that, and we can get you the information here on the coaching. It seems like we've got a package set up. What is it? $19.95. It includes some membership time and 6 or 7 sessions.
Yeah, and it's essentially, when we're talking about personal mentorship, your guys are going to be working with me and Shade personally. So you know, we're just working with a new investor named Michael this week. And so when we do our coaching sessions, we actually do something very similar to this webinar, meaning that we actually record the coaching sessions, and you have the ability as a student or investor to see our screen, and we talk back and forth as we can go through and review upcoming auctions, review properties that you're interested in, and then gives you the ability to go back and replay. And so our coaching program isn't a large program. In fact, we only really work with about 4 or 5 students each. So it's really not something that's for everyone, but for students that want to get out there and get going, it's a good way to get out there and get some deals done.
Yeah. Now, one of the questions is, do people really buy land today? With money being tight, and the answer is yes. But what it really comes down to is price. Okay, everything about real estate comes down to price, and that's where we have our biggest advantage with is on price, because we can find it for a cheaper price. So in other words, if you were buying raw land at market value, then would that be a riskier investment? Well, not risky in terms of what you're buying. The investment's secure, but if you're paying market value for it, you're going to have a hard time selling it, probably, or trying to be profitable on it. But if you pay 5% of what the property's worth, then can you sell the property? Well, sure, because you've got all this area. You've got 95% of the property's value to work with, depending on how much profit you basically want to have. I mean, you pay $100 for a property, or $500 for a property that's worth, let's say the county says it's worth $8,000. You could turn around and offer that at a 50% discount. You could offer it wholesale, and be able to find buyers. Another thing you can do to ensure that properties sell is offer seller financing, which is a really easy thing to do. You basically can sell the property. Let's say you sell the property for $1,000 with seller financing. What it would mean is that somebody might pay, let's say the property is worth, the selling price on it is $2,000. You sell it for $1,000 plus seller financing. So basically, the way it would work is that the buyer would send you a check for a set amount. Maybe it's $50 a month or $100 a month until that amount is basically paid off. There are lots of people that are interested in seller financing because it doesn't go against their credit the way that a mortgage would or something like that. It's a way for people to be able to afford a property that they might not normally be able to afford. And for you, you're in the position of the bank, so you're never at any risk. If somebody stops paying for the property, then you simply sell it to somebody else. You don't actually have to repossess anything, because you don't transfer title on the property until the property's been paid for. So there are a lot of ways you can sell property, but the price is ultimately what really matters when it comes to raw land. And there are lots of people. Everybody still knows that real estate is the ultimate investment. Everybody still knows if you buy real estate, it's always going to be a good investment. And because of that, I think you'll always be able to sell land. They're not making any more of it, and there's just a limited quantity.
Yeah, and when it comes to land, even something as simple as a building lot. Like we'll buy a building lot where there's a building lot between 2 property owners that have homes. And we'll just simply send out a couple of letters to each of the property owners, letting them know that the property is available. And sometimes you can even get property owners that will essentially bid up the value of the property, because you're already giving it to them for a discount. You could say, you could pick up a property in one of these type of resells, or let's say you're getting it for 10 cents on the dollar and you offer to sell it to the neighbor for 40 cents on the dollar. Well, that gives them an opportunity to increase the value of their property. They're still picking that property up at a huge discount, and you've just made, you know, a 40% of the property's value in a quick return.
Yeah, yeah. Now, some other questions there were just regarding the one-on-one training. Yeah, we basically take you through the process of buying and selling. See, part of the challenge is buying the items good, but then the other part of it is your exit strategy and how you're planning to make money with it, how you're planning to sell it. And yeah, we walk you through that process, both, you know, the buying and the selling of it, because ultimately that's what success is, making money. And the only way you're going to make money is if you can buy and sell it. So
yeah, the only real reason we're doing the coaching program is so that we can personally work with a handful of people over the next 3 to 6 months and really help them create success, so that we can use that success and testimonial as well. And so that's part of the reason that we're doing this is it gives us the ability to work hand in hand and help a handful of individuals become successful with tax sale investing, and then be able to use that success to help promote our program more.
Yeah. In fact, after the event, we'll send out an email to everybody with a link to sign up if you're interested in it. We'll send that out with a replay link for this webinar, plus a link for the coaching package if anybody's interested in that. Now, here's an example of what we're looking at here with some of the new online sites that make it a lot easier to do. This is taxsale.info, and this has properties throughout Michigan. Now, Michigan has an interesting mix of properties. Some of the areas in Michigan are terrible, and some of the areas in Michigan are already rebuilding and are already starting to come back. You also have a lot of properties where there used to be a home on the property, and the county has torn it down and now just has basically an open lot there that's ready for improvements, and they'll begin the bidding on those types of properties at $100.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's all different types of properties. Now, Michigan has just taken place. The resale actually took place, what, 2 days ago?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
So you know, they'll probably be adding more over-the-counter properties to the list. But there's these type of opportunities all throughout the country. You know, Pennsylvania has good opportunities to even purchase properties for $200 to $500 a piece. You know, there's lots of different areas where there's these good opportunities.
Yes. Now, one of the questions here, it's a really good question. You know, how do you check to see if there's a mortgage due on the tax deed for sale? Well, on most of these, whenever we're looking at tax deeds in these states, we don't even have to worry about a mortgage, because if it's gone through the tax deed foreclosure, then that foreclosure has wiped out or extinguished anything associated with the property like a mortgage. The only things that can survive a tax foreclosure is other types of government liens. Other types of government liens, some of them can survive the foreclosure process, and so most commonly the way that we would see that is in some kind of like a maintenance fee, like a grass cutting lien that the city places against the property. Sometimes we have to pay those. You know, when we buy a property, although we can usually find out what they are before we purchase the property, either through the online records that the county provides or by contacting the county and asking them if there's anything owed on the property in terms of municipally.
Yeah, well, and if a property has a mortgage, it's going to be structured. And for structured properties, even though the mortgage doesn't apply, we always recommend getting some type of title search done. If it's the $30 title search that we recommend on our website, or if it's, you know, a more expensive title search, you're gonna, you know, there's different ways to pull up that information. In fact, you can do it on your own as well. It's something we talk about and teach in our membership program. So that's something that you're going to come up with. Just like Shade said, it's not something that's going to stick to the property after the foreclosure, but you're going to see that information anyway, just kind of FYI, as you research the title before purchasing the property.
And another question is, you know, can we buy tax liens over the counter or just deeds? Yeah, you can buy tax liens over the counter or tax deeds over the counter. And when we say over the counter, we're just talking about either liens or deeds that were offered at a tax sale, but for whatever reason didn't sell. So they can be purchased afterwards directly from the county, kind of like this property we're looking at right here. So these are over-the-counter properties. we're looking at each, sorry, let me back up here on one of that so you can see the properties. These are over-the-counter properties, okay, for this county, for Jackson County. And we can see on some of these they don't have the minimum bid amount announced yet. On some of these they do have it announced. And so we can click on and we can see what the properties are here, or at least we can get some information here. Now basically if we wanted to find out more information about what the properties are from here, we would select one of these, and we would then take some of the details from the property, like its parcel ID number right here, and we would copy that, and we would pull up the information for Jackson County, Michigan. Okay, so we basically go like this. Oh, there we go. We're gonna. I just type in Jackson County, Michigan. We're gonna look for their. What we're looking for is their county website, and a place where we can plug in information like a parcel number. And so now, if I've got that copied here, and I'm trying to remember if this will let me do it easy or not. There we go. Okay, so basically what that did was enabled us to pull up a map here of the property, and we can actually also pull up imagery on the property. So we can see this one right here doesn't really have anything.
Yeah, it's more of kind of an old and smaller lot that was put together, but the development isn't developed. You know, one thing about they asked one of the attendees asked about over-the-counter tax liens is that there's actually online websites that you can go and purchase over-the-counter tax liens right now directly off the website. So, you know, if we wanted to, we could go online and purchase tax liens right now, just going through the process that you can purchase directly online just using your debit or credit card.
Yeah. In fact, it's never been easier, you know, to do than it is right now. And you know, this is what we enjoy. This is, I think, going through and finding property like this is, it's fascinating, and there's so many good deals out there that you can find. You know, and it's not just in one specific state; it's in lots of states. You know, there's places all over the country where you can invest in tax sales. Yeah, in fact, yeah, this is just one area, but the idea behind this, though, is that you're going to find with tax sales, the tax deed properties, the cheapest way to buy real estate. You know, if you're looking to acquire real estate, and if we're talking about tax liens and the interest rate returns you can earn, they're going to be above anything you can earn on the market in most cases, and provide a much higher level of security as well. So I think that they really offer the best of both worlds, and it's only getting better. That's the best part about it, is that the counties are making it easier and easier all the time. And I think that it's an investment that eventually will be more common. I think eventually it'll be more common to see people invest in it because they're making it less confusing, I think.
Yeah, which it's definitely a great time to get involved in this investment strategy. You know, either you're looking for interest rate returns through tax lien certificates, if you're looking for, you know, property acquisition through tax deeds. Really, there's so much opportunity out there for people that are willing to go out there, do a little bit of work, you know, roll up the sleeves a bit, and start researching property and researching county websites. Once you understand the information and once you've gone through the process, this process becomes easier and easier. So, you know, going through that first deal may be a little bit difficult, but once you've done that first deal, the second deal is easier, the third deal, and then suddenly you're doing several deals at once.
Yeah, if there's ever been an opportunity in your past where you've missed a really good opportunity, let's say that you had the chance to invest in Apple stock or something before it was big, or you know, Microsoft back in the day, or something like that. I think we've all had those types of opportunities. What you can feel good about with tax sales is that you're actually ahead of the wave here. Okay, you're actually ahead of. I think you're ahead of the crowd. I think that this is the way to go, and it's definitely the best time to get involved. I mean, you know, we started with this almost 20 years ago, and today is still the best time to get started with it is right now. You know, there's a better time that you could begin with it than right now. So whether you're looking to pick up property cheap or just earn interest, you know, we can help you do it. So with that being said, we will get a recording of this out to everybody along with a link so you guys can check out anything you want here. If there's any questions, you're welcome to oh yeah, in fact, yeah, we'll send out this information and we'll send the email out to everybody with the replay link and with other links there about the coaching or anything else you're interested in. And if you have any additional questions, you can send Steve or I an email, or you can contact us here at the office. So, we'd love to talk to you. We'd love to help.
Yep. You guys have a great weekend, and thank you for attending the webinar today.
Yeah, absolutely. We love having you out. So we'll get this out to everybody, and maybe we'll see you soon here in our membership program. We'll see you.